September 10th, 2020, Anthony, and we're getting a visit once again from our good friend over at Remington Hotel, Sloan. Looking forward to catching up with him.
It's my baby's 18th birthday.
Excellent. Happy birthday, baby. All right. Hey, everybody.
Did I mention my baby's taller than me and can kick the crap out of me?
No, I think that's kind of assumed at this point. I don't know how my 16-year-old twins are now bigger than me. But, you know, at first it was like, this is weird. This is uncomfortable. But I love that they're big, they're strong, they're healthy, and they're going to hopefully make a way.
You can beat me up. And next week starts our training for our college volleyball team. So,
right.
So excited about that. And last night we went out to her university and we had dinner with her. And I gave her, in the military, there's a squadron shirt that you use in basic training for PT, for working out. And it's also like you have a couple of them, you use it kind of go to sleep with. And I have one, I saved one, and I was cleaning out my garage the last couple of days. And believe it or not, I have a 50-yard container I just filled up from my garage. And I saw it, I found it after 30 years of not seeing it, and I washed it, and I gave it to her as a present last night, as just like a sleep shirt. And she loved it. It was like, she looked at me and goes, this is good. Wow. And like, she so appreciated it. And I was like, wow, that may be the best moment in my
life. That's really awesome.
Thanks for this 30-year-old torn up shirt. Appreciate it.
I'd like to say, though, my kids are bigger than me and could beat me up probably physically at this point. I'm much better at psychological warfare, so they can't stand. They don't get a chance. All right.
All right.
I do want to remind everybody on Wednesday, September 16th, we're inviting you to be sure that you participate in a very special event that we're going to be doing with our good friends over at Circ Plus. They're going to be introducing this breakthrough touchless sterilization innovation that's going to really open the doors to some recovery here in the hospitality industry.
One of the things that we didn't really touch on, I think I'm allowed to touch on, is that one of the things that people talk about is that the way you get this, the COVID, is through air. And so this helps with that. That's all I'll say. I'm so afraid to say anything.
Yeah, I'm afraid to say anything either. We were really sworn to secrecy here. You should have seen the documents that we had to sign were something like this. It was pretty crazy. I'm just kidding, but we are trying. We don't want to ruin the surprise. Please go to circplus.com. That's CIRQPLUS.com/clean. Register for the event now. Next Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We'll still have our regular 12 o'clock show and the 2 o'clock.
If you own a hotel, an airline, a food and beverage outlet, if you own anything, you own a movie theater, you own a sneaker store, you own a hot dog stand. If whatever you own, you need to listen. At least pay attention to this. You don't have to do anything else, but you have to sign. Please go to circplus.com/clean. Trust me, if nothing else, your mind will be blown.
All right. I think that's a
piece of information I want to get to.
Yeah. What you want to get? Should we get to Sloan, or do you got something else that you want to add first?
Two pieces of information I want to get to. Two pieces of news. One, by the end of the month, the restaurants in New York will be open, 25% capacity. The government was forced with a major lawsuit, or was faced with a major lawsuit, I should say. And I don't know if it was the lawsuit or just that the government decided that it was time to open it. So that hopefully gives a reprieve for some of these restaurants that were able to hang on. So as it gets colder and you're not allowed to, eat outside, or it's too cold to eat outside, this may get them through the winter until we get to 50%, 75%, and hopefully 100%.
Right.
That's number one. So that's good news, right?
And I'd like to add, if there's anybody out there that sells those awesome propane heater tank things for outside, contact us. People might be needing to purchase those. Maybe we could work on a deal. What else do you want to add there, Anthony?
Okay, whatever. and then I didn't buy this tie at Century 21. I bought this tie at Hammer Made. You go in the airports and you see those stores sometimes it says Hammer Made. Well, it's a Hammer Made tie, and it's very nice. But I usually buy a lot of my ties at Century 21. The bad news is Century 21 is going out of business. Now,
tragic.
That you will get a lot of good deals. So I will be at Century 21 very, very soon as those deals go on. But what happens in big business, right? You have insurance. You have insurance for reasons, because you basically have a lot of debt because you have to bring in a lot of inventory. So every season, if you're buying $200 million worth of stuff, you're not paying that out of cash flow. You're paying that out of debt, and then you pay that debt back. So anyway, they were not insured enough. So I would imagine they had enough insurance to cover them for a recession, but they weren't enough to cover themselves for almost out of business, 99% of total revenue gone for a certain period of time. So they were $175 million short on their insurance policy. And the insurance policy said, see ya. And Century 21 said, see ya. And if I were a big corporate guy that had a couple $100 million, I would buy them immediately.
Yeah, I would too. But we are going to be in Manhattan next week in the same relatively close area. That's exactly what I'm thinking, Anthony. We got to stock up on some goods. Oh no, somebody's really upset about Century 21. I'd run to the one downtown. Yes, exactly. It's right across from Ground Zero. As a matter of fact,
what was really sad is when Ground Zero, when the Twin Towers were taken out, you could see Century 21 from the West Side Highway. Before that was taken out, you couldn't see Century 21 from the highway because it was behind the Twin Towers. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't wait to not see it again from the highway. That meant at least we're coming back a little bit. But yeah, Century 21, man, you can get a $2,000 suit for like $300. I mean, it's amazing.
Right. And speaking of 9/11, of course, that anniversary, the 19th anniversary of the terrorist attacks on New York, Washington, the plane in Pennsylvania, that is tomorrow. We are not going to be doing any broadcast tomorrow in observance of that day. So no best of show, nothing. We're just going to take some time and reflect and think about what happened.
Yeah. And you know what the good news is about this show? Like I say every day, I get the news updates here. About that. I didn't know we were doing that, but that is the right thing to do.
That's why we're doing it.
What people don't know is Glenn is my boss. He's the executive producer and my everything. So if that's what he wants to do, I think that's a really good note. Or we could, okay, that's what we'll do. Yes, the first time I drove up the West Side Highway, that really hit home. Yeah, that was tough.
I feel like there's opportunities for us to reflect on 9/11, but we only have a limited amount of time with Sloan Dean. So what do you say we move on to talking to him a little bit?
No, we're not going to talk to Sloan. Tell Sloan, Matt Damon can't make it on today. Do you know? You know what that reference is?
I feel like it has to go with the feud with him and Jimmy Kimmel or something.
Yeah,
like that.
Matt Damon was in the green room, I guess, and they ran short one day. And so now every single time say, sorry, Matt Damon, we're not going to get to you. So sorry, Matt Damon, Mr. Sloan, we're not going to get to you. I'm just kidding.
All right, I think let's bring him on and you tell him that yourself. There he is, Mr. Sloan Dean, CEO of Remington Hotels. Sloan, great to see you. It's good to see you. You look a little bit better. You look a little bit like you understand what's going on. The last time you were at the show, we were really right in the thick of this panic. It was all very much a moment of reacting to what was going on out there, trying to respond, trying to understand what these new rules of engagement were going to be. That was March, April. We're now sitting here in September of 2020. Things have started to change. Could you give us a little bit of an update to start on what that experience has been like for you over the last 4 or 5 months?
Before we do that, Sloan, just as an update, remind people how many hotels you have, who you are, all that stuff. For those people that don't know who we are. So
and to remind you, I am at behind me is one of Sloan's hotels right there.
And I'm also in our Hyatt Long Island today. I'm going to give you an opportunity to say hello because he didn't even take a breath. So hello.
Sorry, I get into show host mode. It's tough.
I love the banter. And by the way, I've got an 8-year-old that can beat me up, Anthony. So the fact that yours is 18, at least it didn't take 18.
Well, she did Muay Thai. She used to do Muay Thai, and she had one exhibition. And ever since that, her confidence level has been extraordinary. So any kid that's suffering, like teenager or like 12-year-old or 8-year-old, that is suffering with self-confidence, put them in some kind of martial art. And literally, that is the day I can tell you that my daughter went from a very, very shy kid to a kid that is the first person to step into it and say, hey, this isn't fair. So, so she can kick my butt, and I'm glad she can.
Well, so Remington is a Dallas-based company. We manage a little over 80 hotels across 26 states, do about $1 billion in revenue in a non-COVID world. And, we manage for a slew of different capital partners, REITs, private equity, family office, high net worth, and as well as the city. To go to the second question you had, or the first question you had, in March and April, I think when I first talked to you guys, we were working through and lobbying for the CARES Act and PPP loans and Main Street lending and, employment liability language from the federal government, which is still not come.
Right.
And we were really, just like everyone else, learning. We went from, in a matter of 2 weeks, having 7,000 associates to 470 active by early April. We're back up to 2,000 associates active. We have all hotels operating, but we still are not anywhere to what I would call normal. Most of our restaurants are not operating. Only 3 of my 16 spas are operating. So we still have very limited operations. And I equate it to, I think when we first started this, a lot of people thought this was maybe a 5K race, be recovery, get through second quarter. Right. That is obviously a false narrative. Then a few folks maybe thought it was a 10K race, then a half marathon. This is a full-blown marathon that, quite frankly, we're not going to be to the other side of until we have a workable vaccine, improved therapeutics. True business travel, true group travel probably doesn't come back till Q2 of next year.
Fair enough.
And I think we're somewhere around mile 19 of that 26.2 miles. And for those of us that have run marathons, the number one mileage that people quit a marathon is 20 miles. It's far enough into the race that your legs are on fire, you're hurting, but it's still not close enough to the finish line that you're willing to suffer the pain. And so I think that is right here, right now. You have burnout, you have fatigue. There's still not a vaccine. Business travel is not coming back in the fall. Schools have gone back and are a mix of problems for working parents. The flu will start to flare up a little bit in the fall. So I think the next 60 to 90 days is going to continue to challenge the industry and continue to challenge our staff. And I think it's incumbent on us to stay the course, to keep running one leg in front of the other, progress, not perfection. And I think 2021 will be a good, strong recovery year, but for the next 4 to 6 months are going to continue to be a challenge. I think that's what we're witnessing right now. And I measure every week as an organization, how many people do I have back to work? This week, it's about 2,000, which is a couple hundred more than last week. Excellent. And that's how I'm measuring it. The one good thing is we have all hotels open. We are GOP positive as of June, and I'm almost the net operating income positive as of August. It's just improving, not as fast as anybody would want. But again, back to my original narrative, I don't think we'll see the return of business travel and group until really next year.
Fair enough. So the next question is, obviously it's going too slow. You just said it. We're all impatient. How are you managing? How do you feel that you're going to get through? What measures have you taken to ensure the safety and security of your organization?
If I may, Glenn, can I ask him a real quick question or just kind of overview what he just said?
Yeah, you don't have to ask me permission.
Well, yes, I do, because in the private chat, I said I want to ask a question. And
I'm so sorry. I'll tell you what happened. I'll be honest with you. I was putting the link up on different pages so people could catch the live feed.
Right.
So I'm
that
sorry
was
I
supposed
didn't
to be
do
our
that.
workaround for cutting each other off, but it didn't work.
It didn't work because I was too busy promoting the show so more people could hear the great things Sloan's saying. Anthony, take it away. I'll shut down.
No, I just want to say, Sloan, the reason, and I said this last time to you, the reason you're in your position is because you're an extraordinarily smart, articulate person. You just summed it up so beautifully and perfectly and honestly. And even using the reference to marathon, I've run one marathon, New York City Marathon, right after 9/11. And I will tell you that at 18, I was just like, oh, okay, we have a choice to make here. Okay, we are either going to give in or we're going to die trying. And about the time I got to 19, I made a decision. Keep shoving my kneecaps back into my legs because it felt like they were coming out and just get past that finish line. And I always ran that marathon and this is the really reason I ran it. I ran it because I'm not a runner, is because if God forbid I'm paralyzed one day, I don't want to be sitting at my TV watching the marathon saying I should have done that one day. That's the only reason I ran it, because you never know what's going to happen in life. So I used to work at the Plaza. So when you know how they run around that corner at 59th Street and you see the plaza in the background. I've always wanted that feeling. So that's about mile 23, I think, 22, 23. Have you run a New York City Marathon?
I have not, but I have a sister-in-law who has, so I'm somewhat familiar.
It's amazing. So I'm running around that corner, and I'm supposed to, like, in my mind, I'm like, ah. But what was really happening is like, I'm gonna die, I'm not gonna make it. And finally, the last 50 yards, I ran up like I was gonna win the thing. But that I just put up a quote just the other day, and the quote is simply stamina. That was the only word. It was stamina. And I said in the beginning, if Glenn remembers, on I think March 15th,
I talk about it all the time, dude. I'm not going to forget that.
I was like, you need to get that word into your vocabulary. And when you're having a really bad day, you've got to remember, man, take a deep breath and let it out, and just stamina. And I do it to myself every day, stamina. And just hearing that you're bubbling at the surface makes me feel good, because we wish you were doing better, but you're bubbling, which means there's life. Because it could have been where you're Century 21 and you're out of business.
That's
so
right.
you were literally in a fight for your financial business life, and that you're still bubbling at the top tells me that is a great example of just put one foot in front of the other. So enough people don't do that, and the reason you're in your position is because we need people like you in that position. Now back to my friend Glenn.
All right, so you understand the rules of engagement right now. It seems to be pretty clear. Things are moving slower, but at least you understand what that is. So what is your path forward at this time? Then we'll get into all those other great issues that we're going to talk about today.
Well, I think, what we witnessed through the summer is leisure domestic carried a lot of our hotels. Our experience was no different than most everyone else. Our urban-centric Manhattan, Boston, San Francisco hotels struggle the most. People are avoiding urban city centers. There's no conventions. There's no foreign inbound travel. So our hotels that did the best were our Florida, Texas, California drive-to leisure resorts, and helped really carry the balance. Our Labor Day weekend numbers were the best numbers we've run since early March.
Wow.
RevPAR for the industry was down 32% last week. That's the best week that the industry's had. We're no different. I think as we go forward, what we're seeing in the numbers is that RevPAR for our hotels, so June, July, August, each month got 6 to 7% better than the prior month. And we see that plateauing, where September and October, if you have a portfolio like us that is like the industry average, we're going to see RevPAR flatten out and not recover as much until we get through the election, until they announce that the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccine are approved, which I think is going to be in about 30 days. And then maybe we get a little bit of outperformance in November, December with leisure holiday travel. Then, once we get to March and we're looking at comparables year on year, you'll start to see RevPAR really start to recover. But I think the name of the game right now is so many people have been fatigued by survival.
Right. Then
we're into this maintenance mode of, okay, we're seeing some improvement, not as fast as we want. And then what's going to really, the mindset impact and the fatigue. So stamina is a good word for it. I say progress, not perfection, that is going to set in for the next 90 days is we're not going to have the RevPAR improvement month over month like we saw in the summer. And so I think people need to be ready for that. But I do think we'll have a re-acceleration once we clear the election, once there's an announcement of a vaccine, and particularly once we get into next year, that I think we will see RevPAR start to really recover. And then once we get to Q2 next year, we're seeing group business at our bigger hotels start to pick up in Q2 and is actually accelerating for second half next year, where a lot of corporations, a lot of conventions are trying to plan in advance in anticipation of a vaccine and in anticipation of the pandemic starting to slow down.
Right.
And so I think that's what I think expectations are everything. And so if you have this false narrative of, well, I'm going to get into October, vaccine will be announced, and then my business all comes back in November. That just won't happen.
So we've got a question here that I was just trying to put up. How are you keeping your sales pipelines full, and are you bringing back sales or ops members? You had said just a few minutes ago that you're bringing back people every single week. So I guess the question that we're looking for is, What is the sales team up to? What does that pipeline look for you? And is there any hope for group business? And what kind of group business are you hopeful about?
Yeah, so let me hit a few things. First, when we furloughed associates, we kept all our VP of sales positions intact to do reactive lead follow-up, and then also some proactive sales throughout the pandemic. And then in June, we brought back the majority of our property sales organization. So we have about 250 within sales. As of June, we had, call it 200 active. Now that is a burden on our statements to carry that load, but we wanted to start being strategic from a commercial perspective to sell into the recovery. And so some of the things that we've done strategically over the last 90 days in particular is, one, we've taken more airline crews. So I have a half dozen hotels where we've taken international crew, domestic crews, in anticipation that we're going to have suppressed occupancy for the next 18 months. And that really is across various markets in California and New York. I've taken more airline business. Secondly,
well, I'd like to ask you a question on that airline business, because airlines are really struggling as well right now. Mm-hmm. How do you even get any of that business? Because it seems like a unicorn to me.
Yeah, well, they are drawing down the number of flights they have. And so your average monthly manifest or housing list is drawing down. So we've actually tried to take on more crew to not only offset less pilots, less stewards staying with us, but at the same time, increase just overall crew volume within the company. But you're right. All airlines have drawn down capacity, and so there is less business to be had. I think what we are uniquely positioned is that a lot of our hotels traditionally wouldn't take crew. I have 4- and 5-star hotels,
right? And
a lot of my 4-star hotels have taken crew because we need to as a hedge. The other thing we traditionally would have never taken is dorm business. So I actually have a hotel in Atlanta that's a 4-star hotel. The entire hotel is leased to Georgia Tech for the balance, and it's very profitable. It's net operating positive.
Wonderful.
And we are effectively leasing and running a dorm for the college.
Is that university have classes in real time? In person.
In person, but they needed to separate students and have only one person per room. So they had to go out and procure hotel rooms. And we've actually had dorm business at a half dozen hotels.
Wow, that's fascinating. And to remind our listeners, the other approach is for universities that are going all virtual, there's still a lot of students that want to remain in that particular area. So there's opportunities to fill your space with that crowd too. Back to you, Sloan.
Yeah, no, you're right. We need to stop saying work from home and stop saying study from home. We need to start saying work remote, study remote. Hotels are great places to work from. And I can't stand the title of work from home because work remote, work flexibility. And I think that really speaks to
they also think it's good for your mental health, because one of the things that people aren't talking about is everybody's mental health. Your team's mental health is probably the most important thing, and probably the number one thing on your mind is making sure that people are feeling good, because, yes, there's a lot of people in our industry that live right on that line, right? And if they don't get a paycheck this week, they don't work. They don't work this week, they don't get a paycheck, they don't put milk on the table. So there's a lot of mental health issues and a lot of things that we have to really concern ourselves with. And those are the things that keep me up at night when I think of the people in this industry.
Right, Sloan, I do want to hear, because I know you have a program.
I want Sloan to respond to that. Sorry, go ahead, Sloan.
Well, I think you're right. I think, again, to play on semantics, social distancing is the worst way to frame up what we should be doing. It is physical distancing, but staying close to people socially and emotionally. So, and I think, I was just on a panel talking about the impact on employees in the industry, and we had a psychologist from Europe on talking about, and he shared a stat I thought was very compelling, is that for humans, only 23% of what you communicate is just your words and verbal. A lot of the other communication is your emotion in your face, your tone, your facial expressions, the space between people, and COVID has impacted some of that, right? We have face masks when you check in. The guests are required to wear it in the space. And so it has an impact on the associates and the guests when you show up and the person's got a mask, a plexiglass in front of the front desk. The associates are being temperature checked every day. And so I think the way you mitigate some of those problems is you have to have daily, weekly check-ins with the staff. I run a weekly webcast for all active furloughed associates with my COO and head of HR, where we address concerns, questions around unemployment, questions around safety. And it's just a very transparent process where we talk about what's going on. And I think it has to be iterative out in front like that, first and foremost. The second thing we have done is we partnered with MetLife and rolled out an employee assistance program, which actually for all our associates, active or furlough, whether they elect benefits or not, can get counseling sessions in person or over their phone with a counselor. And that can be related to what's going on. Maybe they've got PTSD, maybe they've got anxiety, or maybe they have a marital problem because of what's going on. And they can get that counseling. We also then, secondly, have rolled out what's called a Resiliency Program, and it's with Health Check 360. It's for free. Any of our associates, you don't have to elect medical benefits, and you sign up and you're assigned a health coach. And it's diet, nutrition, it's then fitness, it's biometric testing, and then also lifestyle change. And so if you look at the hotel industry, where there's a lot of obesity, there's a lot of smoking, there's a lot of extra hours. And so we're really trying to take a proactive approach, because what I've seen is in our medical, I look at our medical insurance claims every month. And our medical insurance claims are down because people aren't going to doctors, but our mental health claims have doubled from March through August, doubled our medical health claims. And so I think there is an underlying undercurrent of PTSD, burnout, that is getting ready to explode in the industry, where we're asking people to do more with less. They're stressed about the uncertainty, etc. And we have to give them programs like Health Check 360 Resiliency Program to proactively help them manage. And it's working, because what we've seen in the people that have been in the program, we've seen an 8% reduction in weight. We've seen a 9% reduction in triglycerides. We've seen for the people that participate in the Smoking Cease program, we've seen a 36% reduction in those folks of basically not going back to smoking. And so it's a very, and also stress management is part of that resiliency program, where you're assigned a coach and can do it over your iPhone. So we're trying to be holistic as much as we can, but at the same time, having those tactical programs that touch all of our associates. And ultimately, it also comes back to training, because you can't say, well, I have all these safety standards and all these new cleanliness program, and then you're bringing back somebody who's been furloughed and think they know what they're doing. We have weekly iterative training around our safety and cleaning protocols so that people feel safe. And then, if your associates feel safe, they're going to transfer that kind of presence and safety and cleanliness to the guest as well, and they'll be more informed with the guest. So I could go on and on and on. It's a topic that I'm incredibly passionate about, because I think we're going to be dealing with this for a couple of years, where it's like you send soldiers off to war, they come back and they have PTSD for years. It's no different of what hotel staff is faced right now. They're in war and have dealt with associates that have had COVID. They've had guests that have had COVID. They don't know if they're going to lose their job, and we have to proactively manage that. And I don't think people are talking about it enough within the industry, because it really is a huge issue.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is what leadership looks like.
Yep. Yeah. Man, I love you're the first person to be on our show in the 6 months that we've been doing this live show every single day here at 12 o'clock that's talked about the mental health of their associates. There's an issue that we're not talking enough about. It's not just about stamina. It's not just about grit, as John Brinkman said in one of the things. It's about having that right mental health every single day. Anthony and I are pretty decently put together people, but we're still suffering the deleterious effects emotionally from this. I can imagine that other folks with the pressures, it must really be getting to them in a very, very significant and serious way.
Well, and the psychologist I was on the panel with, so we have 8 billion people in the world. 500 million pre-COVID had some type of significant mental illness, depression, anxiety. Anxiety is number one, depression is number two, and then you go down the list. Now COVID has created this whole new scenario. all of a sudden you have a guest checking in who's battling something, and then you have an associate who's battling something. To have a real hospitable experience, you really need to have one of those folks that have high empathy, or in a place of compassion and can manage through the stresses of the unknown. I mean, I can only imagine what you guys have dealt with in New York, where no restaurants are opening, you don't have that social experience. Things have been closed for a long time. You don't know what's happening with schools.
Right.
A lot of businesses are going out, Century 21 going out of business. And so I think we need to have a realistic approach to running hotels, and not just be focused on, there's such a focus on, well, let me survive the cash burn, get forbearance with my mortgage, cleanliness and liability, that in the wake of all that, there's going to be collateral damage of people. And nobody's talking about that.
Well, I'm so glad you are. I'm so glad you are. And we've said PTSD very early on. I'd say not early on. I'd say about the end of May, we were talking about, we got to think about it because, again, I'm feeling the effects of it. A very close friend of ours who lives 10 feet away from me passed away of it. And then seeing my children having to deal with, they're going to be in school, they're going to be remote, one's working from home. And, watching my wife, who's been literally terrorized by it, and then watching my friends being out of work. And then, me and Glenn aren't on the road like we used to be. So I keep saying to myself, anytime I feel something or see something about myself, I do something about it. Like I was telling Glenn, I had ice cream for 2 weeks in a row for lunch just because it made me happy. It was the only thing that was making me happy that I did for myself. And then now every single morning, outside of this morning, I'm on the beach for 15 minutes sitting there completely mindless. So whatever I need to do and bring myself to do, I'm doing. But again, I'm 55 years old. I'm a pretty resilient person to begin with. So I'm finding the things within myself to try to figure it out. However, most people and a lot of people need help. It's okay. It is okay to talk to a therapist. I have talked to a therapist in my life. It is not only important to do it, it's almost mandatory to do it at some point in your life because the people around you, the people that love you, the people you're close to cannot give you the perspective you need because they love you. So what's the first thing I try to do as a father is I try to fix everything. And I want to fix it by the end of the conversation. That is not healthy. My children, my family, everybody around us, we all need to talk to people to feel better about ourselves and to really get the answers. And that you've articulated in such a way. And the most important thing that you said, and as I was trying to keep up with, which was the most important thing, but I would say the thing that really hit me was the first thing you said. Every week you're on a call with the people who have been furloughed to give them answers. Now, in those answers, there's some answers that you don't want to give. There's some answers that are very, very tough, that are very difficult, that probably make you cry. But people can deal with information. They can't deal with non-answers. Okay, not to get political, but when you have a leader in our country saying, I don't want to tell people how bad this is because I don't want them to panic. You don't want people to panic, but not giving them information is not making them panic. It's just making everything worse because now we're worried. Like, what are you telling us? What you're not telling us? The way you are so, and again, by the comments we're getting, people are really inspired by what you're saying because you're transparent. Once I give you information, it is up to you to decide what you do with it. But if I don't give you information, now I've just compounded your worry. So that you're that transparent is really exceptional.
I appreciate that. I'll give you an example. I think it was hard for us. We had extended a lot of furloughs in June, thousands of people. And I got a question on one of the webcasts and it said, I've been interviewing, I'm out on unemployment, I'm furloughed. I love the company. I love Remington, but I have another job offer. Should I take it? And wow. I said to the person on that call, I said, yes, you should. You have to do what's best for you and your family. There's uncertainty. I don't know if we're going to be able to bring you back. And I got a bunch of, wow, I can't. But that's just the reality. I think people, you're right. You have to be candid with people and even tell them the stuff they don't want to hear. And they can deal with it if they feel like you're being transparent, honest, and proactive. If you're listening in and you're a leader of a company, my one piece of advice would be have a weekly Zoom touch point with everyone in your organization, including the furloughed associates. And maybe even you do a one session with people you laid off so that you can learn from it and how you could handle it better. Because I see so many companies that are not communicating. And if they are communicating, it's only with the active associates. And I think that's a huge mistake.
I'm using the Board of Education in New York City as an example. I'm seeing firsthand how they're handling this, and it is so insane. They are so not prepared and not really giving a lot of information that they should be getting, is what I'm hearing from friends. And, they're doing their best, but communication, and not only that, when you're at the end of this, and when we're at the end of this, you don't want to feel guilty that you told your associate, hold on, and then all of a sudden you say, you know what, I made a mistake. Like you are releasing yourself from that liability and from that guilt. Also, once we get through this, and hopefully we do, and hopefully things come back to some kind of normalcy, we're going to be hit with a recession we haven't seen in 100 years that may eventually get into a depression. We don't know. But if you look at the and you're a numbers guy, I'm a numbers guy. If you look at the financials, you look at the GDP, you look at the unemployment, you look at the debt of this country, if it was a P&L that you and I were looking for as a pro forma, would you back America right now? You'd be like, oh, I have to get back to you in 30 days. We're in troubling times. When Century 21, which is a company that's run its company really well, really efficient from service standpoint, from carrying debt, they've run that company as a small family business, even though it was a big business. And when you see companies like that going out of business, we've got problems. And so once we come out of this, we're now going to go into this long recession period that we all have to, again, think about stamina and thinking about taking care of ourselves. What do you think about that? How do you think we come out of this once we kind of get back to work and the hotel business starts to recover? What do you think about us being in a recession, and how long if we do go into one?
I think because of how much stimulus has been thrown at this crisis, I ultimately think in the short term, we're going to stave off a continued recession. You have so much quantitative easing by the Fed. You look at the stimulus that's been thrown out, $4 trillion already. They're going to do another $1 trillion. Now, I think ultimately, because of debt to GDP ratios, you look at the debt of most countries. You look at Japan, for example, who's got the highest debt to GDP ratio, and it really started in the 90s, and now they have negative interest rates.
Right.
The U.S. is still not to 100% debt to GDP.
But it's getting close.
It's getting close. And when we cross that line, it means the end is coming at some point, because there's a debt to be paid. I think that is ultimately, can you draw down the debt with stimulus into the future? I'm not smart enough from a macroeconomics perspective to think that out. I do think that is problematic for whoever is the administration for the next 4 years. I do think, though, in the short term, between stimulus, next year being a recovery, that we're not going to probably see a recession in the next, call it 2 years. But also, travel is going to be a lagging, just like we were the first.
Right, of course.
You're going to be the last to recover. So I think for us, unfortunately, for the next 12 months, it's going to continue to feel like a recession. And I don't think we get back to kind of profitability levels of 19 until 2023, 2024. And that assumes what you're talking about doesn't happen, that we don't regress into some kind of recession.
If you look at the GDP, you look at unemployment, and when you look at debt, aren't we in a recession?
We are, by definition, a recession after Q2. We, by end of Q4, will not be, because you'll have GDP expansion in Q3 and in Q4. Albeit travel will still be in a recession by definition until at least Q3 next year. So I think, there's kind of broader recession definition than travel. I think we're still 12 months from a non-recessionary environment in travel, but by definition, I think at the end of this year, the U.S. will not be in a recession.
Well, I know what I'm doing the rest of my afternoon. I'm making Sloan 2024 signs.
I don't know. I may some of my personal background, but I think Trump wiped that all out. I may have a few skeletons. I've always said that, maybe I could be the first socially liberal person to run Texas. Uh,
Well, you know what?
you know,
You and Joe, listen, Joe Rogan lives there now, so maybe you and Joe Rogan get together because
yeah, yeah. I just have this vision of ex-girlfriends showing up on the campaign trail.
Well, I think you're right. Trump completely cleared it all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
you don't have to worry about anything because
Yeah,
apparently nobody
exactly.
cares about.
No, but you know what's so
Nobody
funny?
cares about that right now.
You know what's so funny? You know what's so funny? Somebody just said to me, "Did you hear the tape about Trump saying whatever he said about not wanting to make everybody panic?" And I said, "It doesn't matter. It's not going to hurt his base." And they go, "Yeah, he can punch a baby in the face and it's not going to hurt his base." And I was like,
Yeah,
"Point, good point."
that's so true. All right, so we got a great question here about what is the strategy to get out of the travel recession? Do you even have any control over it, really, Sloan, or is it more of just everything has to fall in place nationally before you can even take advantage of potential circumstances?
So I think we can. So let me talk macro, and then I'll talk micro for us. So I think macro, let's get there is a good start. So if you guys have seen U.S. travel in conjunction with 1,100 companies, us included, have rolled out a campaign called Get There that we
we saw that. Amazing.
Yeah, and I think we need to promote. Let's get back to traveling, particularly once there's a vaccine and people feel safe. That we need to really have a symbiotic. Let's make America a great place to travel, and also U.S. travel and various associations needs to make America look more attractive for foreign inbound. And so if we can attract, we've been since 9/11, one of the adverse outcomes was that we've been losing since I think it was 2003, the U.S. has lost its percentage of foreign inbound travel every year.
Right. I do have some context on that. What we had maintained the right dollar amount that had remained steady over the years, but the travel pie expanded so much. Our percentage of travelers that we would actually get has been significantly depressed. So if you look at the raw numbers, it doesn't really tell the whole story. Okay.
Yeah, and I think the government in looking at waiving some visa countries, also in trying to stimulate foreign inbound could help. The other thing I think that can happen is there be a business tax for travel, so some type of business tax benefit that incentivize companies to get back to travel next year. And then also an incentive for individuals that if you go and take a vacation, it's a tax deduction up to a certain amount. I think those things macro can help kind of pull forward. I also think if the federal government would come out with employment liability language that indemnifies most large employers, your Facebooks, your Googles would be more inclined once there's a vaccine to say, okay, guys, you can attend a conference. Because right now, if you look at a lot of Fortune 500s, they've been what you would say they socially overreached and said, hey, through June of next year, regardless, you're not to go to a conference, you're not to be in a meeting of over 50.
Mm-hmm.
And they had these strict policies. Well, if the federal government came out and said, hey, we're going to indemnify everybody from a COVID, risk liability situation, I think it would stimulate some businesses traveling faster. And then from a macro perspective, I think ultimately we're going to be at the mercy of demand, right? It's, is there a vaccine? Is there better therapeutics? Mortality continues to come down. And then businesses, groups, conventions, sporting events, weddings get bigger and everything comes back. And I think that is a slow process that really starts early next year. And then you'll see second half of 2021 acceleration. Right. On a micro level, at an individual hotel, what I think you can do is do things like I talked about. Think about business that does exist and consider taking that in an interim basis. So could you partner with a college that needs to occupy students? Can you work with medical community to maybe occupy hotels? I'll give you another example. We have all these fires in Northern California. It's terrible for Northern California, but we were the host hotel at our Hilton Santa Cruz for Cal Fire, and we've effectively been sold out. So I think you have to be creative in these times and augment your demand, and maybe in a microcosm you can outperform and feel like you're less of a recession hotel.
Right. Excellent. I like what you're talking about on that macro level stuff. I remember distinctly earlier in my career that the travel deductions used to be a lot greater than they have been since the economy started going to overdrive in the last number of years. I don't remember the exact specifics when that tax law changed, but a lot of the things that Anthony and I talk about with our guests is the hassle factor. And I think that if we could put in, and I know that the industry is looking for 50% deduction on travel expenses off your taxes and stuff like that, I think that goes away a long way at chipping away at that hassle factor, and it'll get a lot of business owners to go, well, if I only have to pay half as much for these trips after all my taxes are done, then maybe it's worth it now. Does that logic make sense to you, Sloan?
Absolutely. I think it does. And I think those are the types of incentives we need to have in place to try and help stimulate, particularly business travel.
Right. Because the real issue is trying to figure out how to get people to travel without that hassle and without as much of a financial burden in those times. And I think something like that goes to both of those categories.
One of the other things that people aren't thinking about that Anthony alluded to, but wasn't the exact point, is unemployment benefits. So they were $600 additional through July. Then it's now, because of the executive order, an additional $400. When that goes away, if you go into mid-scale hotels right now, it's a lot of unemployed people staying in hotels because their actual earning income savings rate's gone up. When that goes away at the end of the year, what happens to economy and mid-scale hotels that maybe 30% of their occupancy were unemployed individuals who were still earning money through unemployment? Does that demand go away? And I don't think a lot of organizations are necessarily thinking about that impact, that you could have a slight pullback in Q1 when unemployment benefits change dramatically.
Yeah, and I think, the good news is Labor Day showed us that people are going to travel. 6 million people took flights this Labor Day, and so
I should say that was over the entire weekend, not one day.
Okay, and so that's good news. So I do think, and I wasn't sure in the beginning. So I think there's going to be a percentage of people that do work from home and stay home, and it just works for their lifestyle. And it was probably a natural occurrence eventually anyway, because you saw work from home a lot anyway. So I think that those percentages will go up a little bit more than they would have if it wasn't for the pandemic. However, the 6 million really shows me that people want to get out. Even the people that I know are conservative, even the people that I know that are doing everything perfectly right, okay, including Glenn and I, that we want to go and we want to travel, and I will travel. Matter of fact, like I tell Glenn every day, I did it this morning. Is Nevada still on the no flight, the quarantine list for New York City? And it is. The day it is, and I will have a flight out to Vegas. So I am dying to travel, and I think once we're able to go, I think we're going to go. And I think it's all going to come back. And I think the conventions, the good news, bad news is the good news is people are trying to have, the bad news is people are trying to have conventions online. They're not working. There's a couple I don't want to mention that just literally crap the bed. So those people are going to want to come back because they have to make good for those advertisers that they couldn't make good on because these conventions online did not work for them.
Yep. No, I totally agree. I think, there's a large, people say, well, what happens with conventions? What happens with sporting events? It may take a couple of years, but it will come back. The human spirit wants to travel. Travel in general will be very resilient.
Right. Well, to be fair, they say that the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918 really kicked off the roaring 20s. Once people were free to go, that transformed the entire following decade.
Yep.
Yeah, good point.
Let's just hope we don't follow it up with a Great Depression.
And a world war.
Yeah. Good analogy. I just don't want the 30s.
I'm only talking up till 1929, June of that year.
I also think it's really important. If you look at a person that was born in 1900 and say they lived to be 90, so they lived to 1990, they were through a World War I, they were through the Spanish flu, World War II, the Great Depression, Vietnam. I mean, what else did they go through? The civil rights, unrest, the things that we're going through now. But they lived, so by the time they're 90, they say, that person's pretty cranky. It was like they have a good reason to be. I had a grandmother-in-law who's one of the most wonderful human beings to ever come into my life, 97 years old. And I'm telling you, she was using the F word towards the doctors on her the day she passed away. And she had just a full, she was a wonderful lady, but you didn't mess with her, because I never realized that up until this pandemic, I really did not go back and look at what somebody that was 90 years old went through in their life. Like, they had very few years where, like the Roaring 20s, like they had very few years where it's like, it's like they always had something. And that's another thing. That's why the reason I love Billy Joel's "We Didn't Start the Fire," because we can use that song right now. This has been going on and on and on. As long as there's a human walking around this world, we're going to have problems. But the good news is, life is great.
This too shall pass.
So, Sloan, let me ask you a question. You look like a very healthy, vibrant guy. What do you do to keep your mental, you keep your sanity? What do you do to blow off steam?
So I, first thing, I have a pretty regimented fitness. So I'm a Peloton person. I do yoga, and I think you got to first take care of yourself. You want to take care of the others. Secondly, I try to eat, mostly organic. They say, diet is 50% of it. It's probably what I struggle with the most.
Yep.
And then, just like anybody else, I've sought advice of experts and, medical professionals. And I think none of us are too strong to seek that advice out. And so I think also staying connected with everyone. Again, physical distancing, not social distancing, I think is paramount.
And I think someone in your position saying that really helps other people. And that makes you stronger. It does not make you weaker. Asking for help, being transparent, telling your struggle. Listen, I'm the first person to admit I've always had problems with that. I will never tell people if I'm suffering. I will work on myself. I will get help. I will do whatever I need to do. I'm not going to talk about it because that's just not who I am. And I'm sure a lot of people are like that, but you still have to help yourself. You don't want to suffer in silence. You can get all the help you need, and no one needs to know about it. And I think that is really critical, and especially in this time. When you look at somebody that needs help as weak, that means you're weak. If you're looking at a vulnerable person and saying they're weak, it's because you're weak. It's not that person is weak. And I think people in your position, I think it's so critically important to really get that, and that you've shared that with us and said that, listen, you seek advice as much as anyone else, I think is so critically important. And anybody that works within your corporation is lucky to work in that corporation, because transparency is more important than anything else in the world. And you are giving a very transparent vision, and you're giving people the facts, and that's what people want. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sloan, we're just about out of time. I know that you've got a meeting coming up. You are, after all, CEO of a big company over there. Any final thoughts before we wrap up with you today, sir?
I think it's, like I share with my team, it's a marathon, and we're going to get to the other side of this. I think you just treat every day as a opportunity to impact somebody's life. Stay positive, take care of yourself. And, in the next couple months, are going to continue to challenge us. Once we get past the election and we have a vaccine, I think we'll start to feel like we're downhill. And next year, I think, is going to be a fun year for the hotel industry once we probably clear Q1 and the vaccine's more distributed. So if you love travel, but you're burned out, I'd say hang in there. We're going to be in a good place a year from now. And hopefully some of the more macroeconomic challenges that Anthony and I talked about won't come to fully roost. And if anybody listening in ever wants any advice, I'm active on LinkedIn. Seek me out. And thanks for the time today, guys. It's always great to chat with you. And
I want to tell you, you're loved here today. Bring Sloan back every month, and I think he is right, Mike. You're right. In between rugby matches, make sure you come back and check us again, because Sloan, we'll definitely have you back regularly. I'm sorry it's been so long.
You know what I want to do, and Sloan, you may be the right person to help us. Is I'd like to have an employee panel of employees, whether it be a front desk person, housekeeping person, food and beverage person, that have gone through this from different companies. And maybe 3, 4, 5 people that we have on. I hope David, our producer, is listening so he can help us with this. And maybe get a couple of people to come on and really talk through from their perspective, because we really are getting a top-down perspective. And I think we've done a good job of doing that, but I think we've done a poor job in not realizing we've done such a good job of doing that.
I think that's a great idea. I think you should do that. And also I'd recommend maybe you get like a psychologist on.
Yep.
It specializes in stress and resilience and can kind of give some insights.
We're working on it. And one thing that you didn't talk about, and I'm sure you're doing, like you're eating healthy, but your immune system. You know, I've started taking vitamin D and iron and zinc and vitamin C every morning. It takes me 4 minutes to go through everything I'm taking. But I've noticed a difference in the last, I'd say 3 weeks I've been doing it every day. I've noticed a difference that by the end of the day, I'm not as sluggish. By the end of the day, I'm still like, I feel I can still have corporate, I can have meetings at 12 o'clock at night and still be functioning. So, and God forbid you do get sick, hopefully your immune system is healthy enough to help you fight it, because 85% of the people that have COVID has been depleted with vitamin D. So I think one of the things we're not doing as a country enough is saying you have to take care of your physical, your mental health, and you have to take care of making sure you're taking the right vitamins and supplements to ensure that you have a strong immune system.
I totally agree. And I too actually take a significant amount of supplements. So zinc included. So yeah, we're right hand in hand.
Yeah. Listen, as they say, Glenn can relate to this. Chicken soup can't hurt.
Good night. Sloan, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
All right, thanks, guys.
Take care,
stay safe.
Stay good. Oh man, that was
my new favorite human.
Yeah, that's what I love about this show. We always have like such unexpected, interesting, in-depth conversation. That's what this medium allows us to do.
Think of what he did. He took every aspect of life and he had an answer for it. And he said, listen, this isn't going to be easy, but this is what we're going to do. But he reacted to every part of his business. He had an answer for his owners. He had an answer for his employees. He had an answer for himself. That is what leadership looks like. And I'm serious. That man, if he was president of the United States, I'd be like, I can get behind that guy because he makes sense. It's common sense. And it's about dealing with the stuff that's in front of you, not wishing it away. I've worked around way too many people that I call wish away people. Okay. They just wish it away. And that's kind of what we're doing in some elements of our political landscape is we're wishing it away. And we're just waiting to get to that vaccine as there's carnage, as we leave carnage in our wake. And so to hear somebody articulate a plan, that to me is what we're missing. And that's what he's paid for. As much as I like him and as much as like I'm inspired by him, like that's what he's paid for. That's why he is in that position. So it's not like, oh my God, he's so great. It's like, well, guess what? That's what you're supposed to be doing. But unfortunately, that bar looks so high and he looks so great because you don't see it.
Right.
In most companies.
Yeah. And I love that he's taking care of the whole holistically, looking at all elements of his staff out there and his owners and his customers, like you were saying, because it's not just about making money and trying to find solutions. It's about taking care of each other. Our theme on the show is always, we're all in this together. He is living and breathing that every day in his company.
Right. And he said the most important words that you can say, and the things that I say every single day. You cannot take care of a human being if you don't take care of yourself. You can't take care of your children. You can't take care of anyone unless you are fully capable of taking care of yourself that day. And some days you're not, and you've got to be okay with that. You've got to take, as I've told you this before, but Carson Daly's mom was a friend of mine through the hotel business. She used to stay in my hotels. Oh, yeah? Patty Daly, I called her one day and I go, Patty, I've been trying to get in touch with. Where were you yesterday? And because she was a young lady that always called back really quick. We just lost her to cancer a couple of years ago. But I remember her saying, I'm taking a not day. And I go, what's a not day? She goes, I not do anything. And I take not days. I really do. I take not days. And what you do, I not do anything.
Yep. Yeah.
And I literally, when I say I don't do anything, if it's not serving me, I'm not doing it. So if my kids and my wife, so what I do, because I know if I'm home, everybody's going to want something. So I disappear and say, I'm going to play poker or I'm going to the beach or whatever I'm doing. And I take a 100% not day. And I think it is so critically important for us to realize, take care of your health, take care of your mental health. And that way you can take care of other people, because I'm a giver and I want to take care of everyone. But I don't want to look outside myself and see my aggression or my anger, and I'm an aggressive person and I can have a temper. And I really, like my daughter said, well, I've seen you angry. I said, babe, you've never seen me angry. I didn't see me angry once, and that was not fun.
No, as a matter of fact, speaking of mental health, I needed to
And it
see a
wasn't towards
therapist
you.
after that.
It wasn't towards you.
No, I know. Thank goodness. But still, I was suffering the unexpected
Well, I
consequences of
think
it.
the post-traumatic stress disorder that he talks about is real. And I think, you know, I'm sick and tired, especially men, you know, of us looking at other people, including myself. Listen, I'll be the first one to admit, if I see someone not have their crap together, I tend to kind of play into that 55-year-old middle-class white guy saying, get over yourself. And as I'm getting older and I'm more vulnerable and I see my friends more vulnerable, there's nothing worse than hearing my friend who's middle-aged and saying, I've been unemployed and I may lose my house. I mean, like, that person needs help. That is a lot of
Right.
that is a lot of damage there. And I'm starting to realize that I am a person that sometimes look down upon a person that seems weak because I overcame some things. And I'm like, you know what? But now I'm realizing it's like I need help sometimes. And that's not weakness, that's strength.
Well, one of the hardest things I think that we have as people is to really put yourself into what the other person's life is like. We spend so much time relating our experience to what other people should and should not be doing. But the rules of engagement that they grew up with, the experiences that they had, their physicality, the chemical balance in their brains is all very different from every other individual on earth. So that's why that empathy thing is so essential, I think, Anthony, because we have to understand that they are different and they are coming from a different place and they might not be as emotionally equipped or maybe dealing with physical issues or dealing with things that we're completely unaware of or all of them together and more.
Right. Absolutely. And I think when people realize physical activity could be a walk, physical activity could be, you know, get on a stationary bike for 5 minutes. Even if you're an artist and you want to get back to art, like you need some kind of, or doing light yoga, you need some kind of outlet. And I never realized that. Really, I always like working out, but I never realized that until I started falling into what I thought was kind of, I was going to have some mental health issues if I didn't get back at it, and it saved me. And I think it's just absolutely critical. So, you know, hopefully we help some people today. I know this helped me, and your hair looks really good, by the way. It reminds me.
Thank you.
And take this as a compliment. It reminds me of a Brillo pad. I wish I had a Brillo pad.
How can anyone see that as anything else but a compliment?
Well, it's hot and humid here in New York too, Tammy. Well, it is a compliment. When are you getting a haircut? I want to know. When are you getting this? I want you to get. I think you would look great if you shave your head. I really do.
I don't know about that.
Trust me. Put your hair back. Trust me. Come on, trust me. Look at that. Look at that handsome face. Come on.
I think maybe for Halloween I'll go as you this year. We'll see how it goes.
All right, everybody that wants him to shave his head, raise your hand or say yes. Okay.
And if I was to get roped into something like that, there would definitely have to be a huge dollar amount charitable component to
all right, I'll give you $1. All right. Let me ask you a question. The 16th.
Yes.
Exciting.
It is. And to answer you, yes, I will be there. And yes, I'm going to mention that people should be signing up right now to join us at 2 p.m. on Wednesday on a virtual event that is going to blow you away about the future of hope and recovery through a interesting product. Please check them out at circplus.com/clean. Doesn't cost you anything to join us. Just they just want you to register so we know who's joining. That's all.
Please register. I think it'll be, listen, it's worth the wow factor. Even if you're not looking for anything, it's worth the, oh my God, that's pretty cool factor.
Yeah, it certainly is. I want to thank you guys so much for being here. And again, if you want to get your picture featured behind me, drop us a line and let us know. Maybe we can feature your hotel over here.
Always trust a bald barber. All right. So Thursday, today at 3:00, go to Facebook Live, see me and my partner, Jeremy Pinkerton, breaking down one of my favorite shows, which is the Jersey Shore after Hurricane Sandy. I will be going through that, and it's a very interesting review, and I will give you a lot of behind the scenes of what happened in that crazy show. Probably, I would say I can't say it's the craziest show. I can't say it's the most stressful show because every time I say a show, I always say it's the craziest, most stressful show. But I would say this is out of 108 is probably the most popular show. I can walk through a restaurant or a airport today and people yell out about that Jersey Shore show. So it is.
Wait, there are people in restaurants and airports?
Yeah, there are. Glenn. You need to get out a little bit more, man.
I wish. I wish I did.
I will tell you this. I was in a restaurant last night in Westchester called Wood and Fire. They did a very nice job. It was kind of pizza, Italian, but not heavy. Very good. It was outside. Everybody was doing what they're supposed to do. The tables were very distant. And me and my children, my family, we had a nice little birthday celebration for my daughter, and it was absolute delightful. So thank you to those people at Wood and Fire in Westchester.
Excellent. Thank you, Westchester Wood and Fire people. All right, Anthony, should we wrap this up today? I would like to give you as much time as you need today, and I apologize to you for ending the show before you fully got to share about Athletic Greens.
I didn't read in private chat yesterday that you were late for a doctor's appointment. Was your doctor's appointment good?
The doctor's appointment went well. I just for everybody who knows, I'm not sick or anything like that. It's just I'm getting to be of a certain age, and I need to get certain things checked.
You need to get certain things prodded and poked.
Yeah, it reminds me of that scene in Fletch. Let me just leave it at that.
I will tell you, it reminds me of a joke Jackie Mason used to say. He goes, I'll tell you how good my doctor is. My doctor's so good, I've never met him. That's how long the wait is. I have the best doctor in New York. I've never met him.
Unfortunately, we got real intimate yesterday, so I don't have the same story.
Yeah, that's all you need to say. But so I've been taking this product called Athletic Greens. I'm not a paid spokesperson, but it's a supplement. I take it in the morning. It doesn't taste bad. You put 5 ounces of water with a little cup of this stuff, and kind of takes care of a lot of your nutrition. And it just feels great with my vitamins and everything. And I've been taking it every day. And a lot of people, including my partner Jeremy, says I need to stop taking Coke. And I say, I don't do drugs. She goes, well, you seem coked up. I was like, that's Athletic Greens.
That reminds me of our dinner at Borgata.
Oh yeah, was I a little crazy?
Sure, we'll say a little crazy.
But you have it. Have you taken it?
No, I haven't gotten it yet. No. I'm an idiot. I mean, I know I said I would, and then I didn't, but I will. And
all right. Hey, and I got to call you. I got to ask you a question. So as soon as we end, I'm calling you.
All right. See you all later, guys. Thanks so much. Remember, everything is going to be all right. Just hold tight, and you've got one life, so blaze on. And
tonight, 3:00, Facebook Live. Go there and take care of yourself and be kind to yourself.